Mellencamp. Know the singer? Small Town. You heard the song when I was coming out. This is my all-time favorite song. It begins when that guy goes to the microphone and he sings these words, I was born in a small town. Now, the reason that knocks me out is because I was born in the same small town. I grew up with John. We were both born in Seymour, Indiana. But because our farms were separated by a few miles, I went to school in the even smaller Crothersville, Indiana. Population 1,500, never changes size. Every time a baby's born, some man leaves town. That's not why I'm here, okay? But I bring up this distant linkage to a rock and roll icon because if you're old enough to remember John Mellencamp's old music videos, you have literally seen the small town that I grew up in. Now, in addition to our little home farm, we also ran and owned the only mom and pop grocery store in Crothersville, Indiana. That's another part of how I grew up, was stocking shelves and waiting on customers. But I will never forget the day that the guy that owned the clothing store across the street sprinted through the intersection to run in the store and tell my dad the reason they were clearing the field on the north end of town was to make way for the construction of a new supermarket. I literally saw my dad's knees buckle just a little bit. I somehow knew that from that moment forward, our lives were about to change. As the supermarket is being constructed, I think our fears and our anxieties were rising at about the same pace. Finally, the Saturday morning comes for the grand opening of the new supermarket, and we're driving in to open up our little grocery store. Mom and Dad in the front seat, my sister and me in the back, and we look over and we see that the supermarket's parking lot was already filled, even though they had yet to open the door. On what was normally the busiest day of the week, we opened up our little grocery store, and by 11 o'clock that morning, we still had not yet had our first customer. Finally, about 11, door opens, in comes the least likely guy I could have imagined. He's a gruff old southern Indiana farmer named Leland. He pulls a list out of his pocket that his wife has obviously given him of the stuff that she needed when Leela went to town. And he started going up and down the aisles of our little grocery store, filling his basket with the items from the list. That was the instant I became fascinated with why do customers do the things they do? Why would they choose the competition instead of you? Why do customers make the choices they make, do the things they do? That was the moment I started to be fascinated by that. So I had to ask him the question, right? I mean, he's coming up and he's unloading his stuff at the cash register for me to check him out. And I'm only a kid, but I'm fascinated. Got to be respectful how I ask the question. I said, Leland, sir, all of our friends are shopping at the supermarket owned by people from out of town. Yet you, sir, you chose to do business with us today. And sir, I really want to know, why did you shop here? His face turned as red as the tomatoes in his basket. He started almost pawing at the floor with his boot. He looked up and he said, oh, you know. I said, no, sir, I don't know. Why did you shop here? He said, because you guys like me. I thought, no, we don't. But we do now. But it began to educate me on the fundamental challenge of what it takes to connect with a customer. Retail Marketing Institute recently wrote that 70.9% of customers would stop doing business where they're currently doing business and go someplace else if it was more fun to do business elsewhere. More fun. Now, that does not mean when they come up to the parts counter, they want to be met by a stand-up comedian, right? But what it does mean is they want it to be an enjoyable experience, or they're going to look someplace else. The poem is entitled Tomorrow. He would be all that a mortal could be tomorrow. No one would be kinder or fairer than she tomorrow. He stayed stack up the letters he was going to write tomorrow. She'd think of the customers she'd fill with delight tomorrow. But the fact is, they died and faded from view, and all that was left when their living was through was the mountain of things they intended to do tomorrow. So when you get back home and you're getting ready to hit it one more time, would you please think about what we talked about this morning? Splash a little extra cold water in your face. Look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, today it is showtime. Thank you for the chance to be with you. I really appreciate it.